I'm sure there was. Now, we all know local councils have been feeling the pinch, but let me introduce you to Barnet's Graph of Doom. Be warned, it doesn't make pretty reading, and there's even a video.
It is a projection, not a prediction. For instance, the council will be failing to run several statutory services in 2025 if this came true. But as a projection, it received national coverage as the clearest expression of the financial challenge facing local government, and became known colloquially as the Barnet Graph of Doom. The gap between the spending on adults and children's services and the overall budget is the money left to spend on all other services provided by the council, services such as libraries, rubbish collections and recycling, road maintenance, street cleaning and parks.
Well, I'm joined now by Barnet's Deputy Leader Dan Thomas and from the LSE by Professor Tony Travers, who knows everything there is to know about local government. We always bill you that way, don't we, Tony Travers?
We do. Thank you. I'll leave you to judge whether you're correct.
Dan, having looked at that graph, you published it in 2012 and you said that by the end of the decade your authority would only be able to fund children's services and adult social care. Has anything changed since then?
Yes, things have changed since then. Certainly the population is due to expand, as we saw in the graph, but also that's a good thing because the council tax base will go up. But also, as a council, we're making major headway in savings. So we've saved at the end of this financial year, we've saved £70 million at a time when satisfaction with the council has gone up 20%. So those are the sort of things that are changing, but changing for the better.
Right, so the projection is not as doom-laden as you first thought?
But it's going to be difficult. It's going to be difficult. You heard in the presentation the graph of boom, but there are pressures. There are still pressures.
Right. Do you think, though, by 2021, 2022, that the vast majority of your funding will have to be spent on those two services, social care and children's services?
If we don't change the way we deliver services.
And how would you do that?
We need to work more with the residents and the community, which is why we're carrying out this consultation. We've had a first stage of consultation where we've said to residents, what are your priorities? What do you want to keep in Barnet? And we've got a second stage undergoing now where we're saying to residents, right, those are your priorities. How can we deliver them? But in a commissioning way so that the council won't be able, with its funding, to deliver things directly. We'll have to work with all sorts of groups throughout the borough to keep services going.
I mean, is this scaremongering tactics by an authority that is basically saying we need more money if you want us to actually provide service outside those two important areas?
Well, not this particular graph of doom, because, of course, ministers will interpret this as graph of delayed doom, and that will encourage them. They'll think we've squeezed local government, we can squeeze them a bit more, and with luck, the doom will stretch off into the future. I mean, the truth is that the government's decided to level off the deficit and then cut it by major reductions in public spending, but protecting the health service, schools, international development and allowing, despite the brouhaha, welfare spending to rise. So if you protect all those big items and try to level off the total, local government gets cut.
Except councils have proved across the country that they can make savings, that they have made savings, and even Dan Thomas has said there has been a bit of good news. So despite that projection and despite the cuts that have come from central government funding, your delayed doom may just forever be delayed.
And that's what the Treasury will read into this. What they will read into this is if we squeeze local government, it can deliver cuts. We wouldn't dare do that to the NHS because heaven knows what would happen if we did it there. So they will read this as, in a sense, not to reward local government, but to put them under greater pressure in the future. It's kind of perverse way of doing it, but that's what will happen.
I mean, is your authority unique?
I think it is in the way that we've met the challenge.
Is it unique in terms of the burden that you're having to deal with in terms of an ageing population, for example, and social care?
No, it's not, but I would say that ours is actually one of the lowest funded councils in London. So I think we've dealt very well with the reduction in our budget.
Right. I mean, a lot of councils come on here and say they are either they don't get as much money as other boroughs or authorities, or that they have more problems than any other borough. It is quite difficult to know, Tony Travers, not that I'm saying you're not telling the truth, but that in the whole scheme of things, who really is suffering the most in terms of boroughs across the country?
No, I mean, when you live in a system as centralised as ours, where the government allocates all the spending power and effectively all the money, everybody will feel they're hard done by because the government allocates it to them, so they'll always say they're all hard done by. I'm not saying Barnet isn't, and I think Barnet deserves much credit for articulating the issue in the clear way that this graph does. But even if you aim off of that, you still have to come back to the fact that it is councils more than any other part of the public sector that are being put under this kind of pressure.
What do you think central government should do in response to seeing graphs like this?
Well, rather than just talk about what central government should do, one of the things that the graph tells you is that there are very, very significant long-term shifts in this country, and the question that you'll have to ask yourself is whether you think, in the run-up to the 2015 elections, what you've heard so far from any of the parties actually addresses them, because I can't see that they do. We know, I mean, even in terms of the NHS, we've got two major statements out of the NHS. Well, we've got the King's Fund thing this morning, and then the new head of the NHS saying, in effect, we haven't got anything like enough money for the healthcare that we think we're going to want coming 5, 10, 15, 20 years ahead. So you get Lord Warner suggesting co-payment as one of the ways around it. We're going to have to grasp nettles like that. And this is an aspect of it. If you shove a lot of stuff onto councils, or the problems on the councils, you will then reap the whirlwind of it when it comes to what happens in A&E or in parts of the health service, or indeed in parts of the education service.
Right, I mean, the government says it is trying to grapple with the problems of long-term care, how we're going to deal with an ageing population. But if they do, as David Aronovich predicts, keep pushing it on to local councils, when do you think the penny will drop on central government that actually they are going to have to do something?
Well, I'm not sure they'll ever quite get to that point. I mean, they must know there's a tipping point. I mean, somewhere between council spending what they're spending now and zero, it wouldn't work. I mean, heaven knows when we get to that point. But just to pick up David's issue, David is absolutely right that what we've got is all the parties here unwilling or unable to put up the level of taxes in total. Taxes stay at the same level in relation to the economy year in, year out. But they want to promise higher spending. And they cannot bring themselves to tackle that inconsistency. They want higher spending than they are willing to tax us. What
about, then, the division between healthcare and social care? Is that going to have to change?
Oh, yes, it is. We're going to have more integration, collaboration with other public sector bodies. Councils all deliver services, sometimes on their own, and we need to team up with other councils for more joint provision. We've done that in Barnet with Harrow and Brent and done it very successfully, but they are small spending services, and I think where the big prize is with the big services, social care, delivering services with the police, with the NHS, with the DWP, and certainly Barnet, that's something that we want to crack on with.
Right, but politically it's not palatable, which is why government won't talk about the issues that you've outlined.
That's true, and the question comes at the point at which it becomes inevitable that somebody goes to the country and says, we're going to have to get people to pay an element to see their GP, or whatever the elements of co-payments are. Lord Warner was talking about it, and I heard somebody go off at him from saying, actually, we don't have a funding problem, we don't have to have one, we can just do this and we can just do that. And I looked at what she said and I thought, I sympathise with you, but that's no kind of answer.
Right. Interesting. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
No,